Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the fourth meeting of Morning Coffee and Films. Thank you, Bogdan, for being our special guest. Today we will honor Father's Day weekend, and we will talk about your film There and your wonderful encounter with your father 23 years after you left Bulgaria. I will ask you a few questions, and then we'll open up the floor for your questions about Bogdan's work, about the platform we are using, about our partnership, because the Bulgarian and Romanian community started to do more and more projects together, which is really wonderful. So I hope you enjoy it, that you'll join us for more events. Bogdan, I will start with this question. You presented two of your films, This Baba and There, at the Romanian Film Festival in Seattle. FILMABEE hosts a selection of Romanian and East European films curated by the festival. What do you think about this collaboration, and what does the Bulgarian community think about it?
Well, I'm very excited about it. I don't know what the Bulgarian community thinks about it, but I know that when we presented there last year at the festival, it was a Sunday morning, and I believe the premiere was at 11 in the morning, and there was over 200 people in the theater, and a lot of them were Bulgarian that came and came to the festival, and we had this experience together. So I'm optimistic that we can continue to come together through film and culture as we are. And of course, we are neighbors in the Balkans. So for me, it's just such a joy to create this bridge between our cultures so far away from our homeland. And it was also in the last actually coffee and films discussion, it was beautiful to talk to two female directors, one from Romania, one from Bulgaria. And I found out that they work constantly together. Romanians and Bulgarians are constantly working together in lots of co-productions, directors, producers helping each other. So it seems like this collaboration is in the air, and it's really beautiful, and I look forward to presenting my next films as well at the festival.
Thank you, Bogdan. Can you tell us a little bit about FILMABEE, what it means for you? What is the strategy, long-term strategy? Right now you partnered with the Romanian Film Festival. Do you envision expanding this collaboration with other film festivals or other Eastern European communities?
Yes, definitely. So in short, FILMABEE it was inspired actually by my tour with the film There that we are here to discuss. In 2019, I visited over 18 cities in the US with the film, and was really touched by my meetings with the audience. And in the conversations before and after the film, I realized that there is a great hunger from audiences for films that are different, for films that raise perhaps philosophical questions, that ask the bigger questions in life. And but also we were just being brought together by cinema, and it was a really beautiful experience. Of course, now it has changed because of the pandemic, but I believe that we can find a way to continue to come together. And FILMABEE was inspired from those conversations. It was also inspired by the fact that as an independent filmmaker, it's extremely hard to find a place where to distribute your film and to connect to audiences. And many filmmakers, when they make a film, they think that, oh, I made the film, that's it. It's just going to find its way to audiences. But that's not really the case. And we need to change. The idea with FILMABEE is that we change that perception that somebody else will come and magically take our film and show it to thousands and millions of people and will, go on making films. So the idea was that with FILMABEE, we can bring all these filmmakers together in one place where we all benefit from a cross-cultural pollination. And that's why it's called FILMABEE. and the bee plays a very important role in the way that this site is structured, as well as the way that we bring people in. And so the first, when I actually saw that the Romanian Film Festival had migrated to Vimeo, I came, I approached the Romanian Film Festival and said, hey, we live in the same community. How about we come together for this venture? And I'm very happy that this has happened. And we have ideas to bring in other Northwest communities together in the platform where people can enjoy curated content. For me, it's also been a frustration to go to major film distribution sites online and to have for hours to look to find quality content to watch. And with FILMABEE, the goal is that everything is curated by organizations or film festivals or FILMABEE itself, so that people can feel a little bit more comfortable that, hey, we can come in and give this film a try and have something that's both entertaining but also leaves us wanting a little bit more.
No, thank you. Excellent. I'm going to ask you a few more precise questions about Dare. When it was presented at the Romanian Film Festival, I remember people from my community, from the Romanian community, coming to us and telling us that they are completely identified with your story. Do you think this is because Romania also experienced an impressive wave of immigration, and which dried out the country's resources? Or do you think it's much more to it?
I believe it's both. Actually, I don't know much about Romania, except actually my first encounter with Romanians was with Alex, who is here, with my friend Rasmus years ago. And then slowly I started to find out more about Romania. And actually I was really surprised. I wasn't surprised, but the next movie that we've released, Parking, that's a Romanian film, that is about immigration and somebody immigrating to Spain. And I was reading some reviews of the film and actually found out that the problem of immigration is huge in Romania, just as is in Bulgaria. So I believe that definitely Dare has resonated with people because of that connection. But also when we showed Dare here in Seattle, there was people from Japan. My boss, who is Chinese, who immigrated China when he was 7, when the communists came and basically took over China. So I believe now he's in his 80s. So he came to the film to see it at the Northwest Film Forum, and him and his wife said, oh, we just have to go very fast after the film. We have dinner plans. And they stayed for a whole 45 minutes after the film for the Q&A, and they were so moved. So it's, I believe it's a much more universal story, and hopefully more people can find out and relate to it, and somehow through cinema find a peace of mind for where they are in life, or just be inspired by the film.
Thank you, Bogdan. And also, what, if you can ask, this is a tough question, I know. What were you looking for, and what have you found going back after 23 years of being abroad?
It is a tough question, but actually the answer, so when I went back in 2018 for the first time in all those years, I always thought through the years that I have missed Bulgaria as a territory, as a country, as some sort of symbol. But then I played the Bulgarian flute, so I went to this big gathering. There was about 300 people at the seaside, a festival, and I played my flute with my teacher, and he really wanted me to say a few words. And I looked over at the audience, and it was just at that moment I very strongly realized that actually all those 23 years, what I've missed the most has been the people. And that was just, I'll never forget that feeling. And even now when I talk about it, it just gives me goosebumps to see all those people. And that's just been confirmed when I went back into 2019 for the second time. And I spent 3 months there. I just met such beautiful people. I traveled with there in Bulgaria as well. And I realized again that it's just the wealth of the country is the people. And So to answer your question, that was the unexpected surprise of going back. Is just the connection to the people.
Thank you, wonderful. And now my last question, and I will let everybody else comment and ask you questions. Your father is the central figure of this film. I feel like your mother is present, but more as metaphors of motherland, not necessarily. She's actually absent. I even asked you after the film where she is in your life right now, you know. But so the film is centered on your father figure, and then you have a very powerful moment in the film where you ask your father, where you tell your father about the vision that you had, you going in your grandfather's, paternal father's tomb and laying down near him and asking him this question: have you told my father that you love him?
Yeah.
Why is this important? I feel like I identify with this so much, but can you tell us more about it? I feel that it's the essence of the film in a way for me.
Sure. Yeah, I can backtrack a little bit. Basically, when I found out that I got the green card, it was, I believe, in the winter of 2018. And then I really had a breakdown, a complete breakdown, because it was just almost like somebody opened the prison door and said, off you go. And so 23 years later, you're like, okay, now I can go. And you just want to fly away right away. It's almost like when we hear the stories of the Jews in the camps, and when they found them and they were so starved that they started giving them food, and then they would just die from eating. And so it was that same feeling. And I went through quite a bit and had to actually, I believe before I went to Bulgaria, I had to work through a lot of pain and anticipation of meeting my father, of going back to Bulgaria, of reconnecting to those memories. And actually, the instance you're speaking about is a dream that I had. It was almost like, it wasn't really a dream, it was like a dream vision in the middle of the night where I descended. I found myself in the grave with my grandfather. And there was other imagery leading up to that, which was actually seeing my dad as a little boy. And it was really fascinating because my dad, when he was a little boy, he really, in communist Bulgaria, he really wanted to study world religions. So he was really interested in Buddhism and Christianity, and he wanted to go to school for that, and he never could. So when I was having that experience, those visions, he started out with him being in a church and him as a little boy and looking at inside the church and just looking at the church. And then I saw other images of his childhood, and then eventually I suddenly found myself in the grave with his father. And actually remember my wife being there because I was sharing with her what was going on, and she was saying, well, don't talk to him, because interestingly enough, I've also been reading books on shamanism beforehand, how it's very dangerous to talk to when you go on these journeys, that if you're talking to the dead or from beings from other realms, there is danger that you might get somehow pulled in, or I'm not sure what might happen, but I just intuitively felt that I should talk to my grandfather. And actually the film is dedicated to my grandfather. I have a very strong connection to him. And I lay down in the grave and asked him, I said, have you ever told my dad that you loved him? And the answer was no. He didn't answer, but I knew. And so I had experienced years earlier, I had been part of some retreats where there was people with a lot of pain coming in and talking, and I remembered that there were grown-up men coming and crying and talking about how their fathers never told them that they loved them, that until the day they died, they never heard the word "I love you." You know, and fathers think that they show that in some way or another. They show it by providing, they show it by working hard and not seeing their kids at all. But I think that kids crave something else. And so I knew that it was an important moment to have in the film. And actually, my dad had never told me he loved me either. And so that's why it's in the film, and I'm so happy I did that, because then there has been many people and grown-up men, and a man in his 60s came to me and said also that he never, on the deathbed, his father, I think he told his father that he loved him, but his father never had a chance to tell him back, or so it was. It felt like it was the right thing to do, to put it in there and to have that thread run through the film.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Bogdan. And now, if we can take questions, and anybody, if you want to unmute yourself and say who you are and ask Bogdan questions about his film, about his artistic process, anything that comes to your mind.
Hi. So I'm Ilana Marin. I've met you years ago, and I was truly impressed with both your films that they presented at the Romanian Film Festival, and I was extremely touched by the story and by your revisiting Bulgaria and meeting with your father. And it's interesting for me to listen to you sharing that dream and story about grandfathers don't telling their male or their sons, their male offsprings, that they love them. And I think that creates a circle, or a sort of inner circle of not expressing love. And I could see that in my family as well. And I think the first thing when I came to the US was for me to see how much expression of love, and I suspect it historical expression of love more than truly a feeling expressed. But now I can see, looking back at my own experience, that it's more than that. And through words, the feelings are expressed, and the words are important. Did that happen to you as well when you moved here with that kind of experience? I don't know how old you were when you came here, but did you see that's a cultural thing as well, expressing, non-expressing feelings, and making out of that a central piece of in your film?
I was 2 weeks shy of 18 when I moved to the States in '95. As far as there's lots of cultural differences, but I think that, and I mean, my observations have been that also this sharing of emotions and feelings is also present here in a sense, and that, I haven't grown up here to know how fathers talk to their sons and what the relationships are, but because it's an immigrant country with a lot of people coming in from different countries. I remember, as I talk to you about when I used to go to acting school, there was a man from Sweden, and I remember him sharing about his household and what it was like. And because in acting school, you're really encouraged to talk about emotions and feelings, and that's something they never talked about. And since it's, like I said, a country of immigrants, I think that that's a pretty universal theme probably for fathers and sons, for fathers to assume that their sons don't need to be told that they're loved, or and it's not that we need to be all new agey and just be like, I love you, I love you, I love you, because I think the word is also overused a lot. So, but there needs to be some kind of a recognition of that bond and of the power of words.
Thank you, Bogdan. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for Bogdan?
I actually have, if people want, Otilia, I have the scene that I can play of meeting my dad. I can share my screen.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how many saw the film, so this could be an incentive to watch it.
Yeah. Let me do that. Hold on a sec.
It's really a wonderful film.
Okay. Let me see how I can share my screen. Well, I'm trying. I'm on a different computer, so for some reason I don't think I can share the screen. But we can take another question, and I can try to figure it out.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't want to take over. Michelle, maybe you have.
I was actually going to. This is a wonderful theme what we're talking about, but I'm also really curious to hear about how Kaval Park is coming along. I invested early on when, but anything connected to Alex, I knew him since he was a child, and anyway, so I'm just interested to hear how that project is coming.
Oh yeah, that project is so epic, and it's been I think 4 years in the making. During the process of the film, I've been filming Alexander Epler for a long time, and during filming he passed away. So it's but the film is there and it's being edited. It's actually very interesting. It's a conversation we're having a lot at home recently about the fact that the film is times have changed so much. We're not dancing together. We're not holding hands together anymore like we did. And with this film, I got to travel to all kinds of communities from Chicago to San Francisco to Los Angeles and actually film all those communities. And so now the film is taking on a completely different, it's a completely different meaning. It's almost like an archive of before 2020, of what it used to be like. And so I am actually focusing now on finishing, I'm writing a novel, so I would like to finish that, and then probably in the next few months start actually editing again and figuring out a way to present the film, because I was hoping really that I'll be able to tour with it as well and actually play live music after doing that. But again, things have changed, but the film is coming along great, and I can't wait to share it. I think it'll be really a celebration of music and passion and love for music and of community.
Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Ilana or Sage, or I think I heard somebody.
That was me.
Yes,
I'm
ahead.
very, very sorry to inform you that, and I didn't really, I was going to email you about this at some point when I got to know you better, but I have a Me Too story about Alex Epler, and I'm one of several people who have Me Too stories about him. And I was just terrified of his connections with organized crime many, many years ago. So I after he threatened my parents, I finally stopped telling people.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to talk to you, more about that.
Okay. Myself, I don't know anything about it. So
no, I mean, I don't imagine that most of us would have spoken out about it, but
yes, I mean, to answer your question, I have. He was a very complex man, and so I am not. I made, I'm making. The way that this film started is the person that I met and the connection that I had about music, and what it is to have. It's because of people like him and people like Tom Deering who passed away that actually Bulgarians were able to really reconnect to our roots and to our folklore and realize how valuable that is.
Yeah, it is possible for people to be both good, do good things in the world and also do bad things. And it's also possible for people to change. And it was 30 years ago. And
yes. So I'm aware of how complex his personality is, and it's almost actually, I had asked myself many times, how do I approach this documentary? What do I show? How do I portray this? And so it'll be interesting as I continue to edit to explore that and to see how it will all come about.
Thank you very much for hearing me. Is there a way I can contact you?
Yeah, definitely. You can write to me on Facebook or through Otilia. You can get my email and we can talk more.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Sage. Any other questions? I know Ilana had a question. So Ilana, I think it's... And I
figured out why I can't share the screen. I think it's because we're recording, that it's not letting me do that. So okay. It's okay.
Okay, so that's something to think about. We're comparing Zoom to this platform. So yeah, because I think on Zoom you can do both.
Okay.
I think.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah.
I do have, we take some more questions, but if you are all interested, I do have my novel that I'm writing, and there's a very strong father connection in it. So I could read some excerpts from that once we take some more questions, if people are interested.
Definitely. Thank you, Bogdan. My question was, while you were editing your film, what was problematic, or a scene, a shot that you were split and you wanted in, but you left it out, and why you thought that you should, in the end, leave out that scene?
Let me see. Well, there was actually, so the film was edited as we were traveling through Bulgaria. I had the laptop with me, and I was editing as I was filming, because the film is edited sequentially from the moment that I landed in Bulgaria to the moment that I left Bulgaria. And I really wanted to get a feeling for how it's all going to come together. And so that's why I was editing as we were going. And it's actually halfway through the summer until there is a poet that I met, a wonderful man that reads his poetry on camera. And that's when I met, and he read his poetry, and I put that into editing. That's when I realized, wow, this is going to work, this approach to making this film. It was completely new to me. But as far as there was more conversations with my dad in the film than what people will see. But when it was all said and done, my wife watched it, and she suggested that I pull back a little bit from sharing so much information, which I think actually was a really great suggestion, because the story was becoming too personal. And then it's a very fine balance of how people watching the film can see their own fathers and their own relationship in the story. And so if I put too much, of course, some people in the audience wanted to find out more, but in general, I think there was a really great decision to cut. Basically, I just cut out some narration and left it play out with the violin music, so that there is room for the film to breathe, instead of just diving perhaps deeper into our problems as a family. Yeah. But there weren't any other scenes. I mean, it was all, there was a lot of it that was just really fell into place. It seemed like I was just filming the right people at the right time, and then they fit in perfectly in the puzzle.
Yeah, thank you. I think you did a wonderful job. The film felt extremely authentic. And that's why I thought, my God, did you film everything, what you left out? Because obviously you left out and you had much more material. But truly the authenticity was delivered immediately. And I think everybody who was in attendance felt the same way. And I think the balance was perfect, as you put it, to have that kind of universal reaction and feeling and appealing to us. Yeah, thank you, Bogdan.
Yeah, thank you.
Is anybody else who has questions? If not, I do have one, Bogdan. I was surprised about the character who was some kind of a teacher of spirituality, and he was connected with the mountains and the lakes, and he was talking about the energetic centers of Bulgaria. And I do recognize this type of approach to nature and the motherland and the fatherland, whatever you want to call it, in Romania. There's a lot of, I would say, parallel, spirituality that is somehow connected to Christianity, but it feels like it's even more ancient than that, connected to our pagan roots maybe, and the landscape and the ethos that we seem to share. So I was surprised to see that, and happy, because it made me feel home in a way. I mean, could rediscover a type of spirituality that people do have back home, and it's less accessible to me here because maybe I'm not connected to the people who believe in that. I don't know, but it kind of, I lost that coming here. So can you comment a little bit more on what was he a mentor, a teacher? Was he part of a movement? What was that about?
Well, the fun part with filmmaking and any film is that there's so many stories to tell, and they're all different and fun, and so basically, I'll start by saying that many Americans that saw the film came to me and said, "Are all of you Bulgarians so philosophical and spiritual?" And so it was really happy. I was very happy that people actually saw that thread in the film, because just as in any other country, in the news and everywhere, it's just always the focus is on the bad people, the people in politics, the steal, the corruption, and then everybody just dismisses the everyday people that you see in the film that have some deep insights to share about life. As far as the gentleman that I filmed, it was actually a chance, well, it wasn't a chance, it was meant to be, but I was filming a Kaval player for Kaval Park, and we were supposed to go to the Rila Mountains. It's a sacred place with 7 lakes that people go and honor through a dance that they do. And that was started by actually someone, it's Petar Danov. Maria, what's his name in English? Benicio Duno in English. That he actually was an immigrant in the US in the late 19th century. He started in Chicago, and then he went back to Bulgaria, and he started teaching Christianity, but in a different way, where he was very connected to nature. And so nature was an intricate part of his teachings. And so many people discovered him and became his student, and they dress in white. And they go to those 7 lakes every year, and they gather and they play music. It's a really beautiful experience. And so I believe that Płamen, who I filmed, was, knew about Danov, and he just happened to be dressed in white. But he goes to the, it's funny because actually a few weeks beforehand, he got in big trouble by the Bulgarian government because he went to the same lakes with people and they were doing dances, Bulgarian folk dances. And I didn't know that until after I filmed them. But he's an architect in Bulgaria, and he's pretty involved in movements to conserve nature. But he went to the mountains and they were dancing, and while they were dancing, in the euphoria of dancing, they actually danced inside of the lake. So they went probably up to their knees in the lake and out. But apparently it's forbidden for people to go in the lakes. So he got fined a lot of money for doing that. But then he turned around and he created these beautiful signs all around the mountain that tell you how to preserve the mountain and how not to throw your trash. And I don't know how it is in Romania, but it is appalling in Bulgaria. And if actually there were scenes that I left out, I left out a few scenes of people throwing their plastic bottles and trash in the Bulgarian mountains, which actually the problem is that there is no garbage bins for people to throw their stuff in because there is no people to collect the garbage bins. And so it's just like interesting, it's a catch-22. But so on the day, that was actually just a few days before I left Bulgaria, and I went up there to film the flute player from the other film, and he said, "Hey, I have a friend, can he join us?" And then the gentleman that you see in the film came, and I saw him, and I said, "You know what, you have to be in my current film." And he said, "Okay." And then he just started taking us up the mountain, and obviously he had been there many times, and it was a really sacred place for him. So I filmed them with the wild horses, and it was just a really beautiful juxtaposition, and it just played in beautifully into the story, and I'm so happy that we did that. And then as we started coming down, it actually started getting all gray and thunders, and and the fog started coming in, and actually people do get lost in that area over there. So I thought that was also really interesting, because actually that transitions some of those shots from there with the gray fog coming in, transition into me telling my story about descending into the grave and talking to my grandfather. So everything just really came in a unexpected and beautiful way.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other questions? Not yet.
Maybe Bogdan can read from his novel passages that he said.
Would you like that, Bogdan?
Sure, yeah, I'd love that, because it's actually interesting. I've been thinking more about fathers, and this film is just scratching the surface of how present my father has been and will be in anything that I do. And I think that's true for many of us. You know, all my films will in some way explore that relationship and tell more of that story. And perhaps, you know, going back to talking about, you know, why I cut out some of those scenes from the film, is because we can't cram everything into one work of art. So I'll give you. It's interesting because this book, novel that I've been working on, it's actually a children's fantasy adventure, and it was written 10 years ago as a screenplay to be a film, and it was just very hard to get financing for it, and I decided a couple of years ago to actually turn it into a novel that eventually then I'll turn back into a TV series. But as I was writing it, now during the pandemic, I've had a lot more time to sit down and focus and write, and to just not write with the idea that I have to be done by a certain time, but to really explore the characters and to really explore the dynamics. And I was wondering, well, how can I show the awe that I felt when I was a young child looking at my dad. My dad was my hero growing up in Bulgaria, and then every hero has a shadow, and so my dad, including, and all of us, you know, we have to face our shadows at one point or another. And then I discovered that shadow of my dad, and so I thought, how can I bring this into this novel? And I'll give you just a little bit of basically. I'm going to read an excerpt from a part of it where the father takes his son, whose name is Ashwin, and his wife and Ashwin's mother up in a balloon to fly over the metropolis, which is the city that they live in, and the father is in charge of the security forces and surveillance forces and part of the people that run the city. And so I'll start with this here. Silhouetted against the halo of the sun, his father willed power beyond measure. To fly over the metropolis was their birthright. In the eyes of a son, his father became carved out in a symbol of permanence. These eyes of innocence recorded every nuance of the flight. So that's just an excerpt, again, about how the son, a 10-year-old, sees his father. And then the point of view of the father is he's looking from this balloon flying up high in the air, and he's looking at this metropolis, which is actually a landscape of skyscrapers and factory chimneys all in one. The metropolis was a labor of beatitude, a glory he knew would never be their domain. His wife stopped unpacking the picnic basket. She was losing the battle over the mind of their son, who preferred the company of his father to hers. Understandably so. Every word her husband speared down on the boy, she had to counter with a shield of patience. As if sensing her husband's thoughts, her heart coiled, as if stung by a foretold sentence. Ashwin felt his father's ice-cold hands cup his face. He didn't fully understand, but sensed the warmth in his father's eyes. His father stayed silent. They were the watchers, the keepers of beauty. His trivial self was the last corner of the city he would be concerned with serving. In that moment, he knew there was no turning back. And then I'll read the final passage, which is actually what happens in the balloon up in the air, that there is, despite warnings, the father, who is very single-minded and has a vision, just like my dad did, of what democracy needs to be in Bulgaria and what we need to do to save the country and to put family and child in front of, behind, our vision for a utopia. And so what happens in this balloon, that there is a big thunderstorm that happens and turns the balloon over, and it's basically a big catastrophe. And then, so this is the last part of the chapter. As basically the father is hurled, and the father breaks his leg, and he's incapable of manning this flying vessel up in the sky. So his son, that's 10 years old, goes and starts turning off and on valves. His father watched his son, and if Ashwin could see him, he would know his father was crying. As if feeling his gaze, Ashwin turned back, and with a mighty grin, he started to say, "Look, Dad, I am." Ashwin couldn't finish his sentence. The next thunder turned the rain upside down, sending Ashwin over the railing. When later Ashwin slowed down time, replaying the storm in all of its gruesomeness, he realized his father had somehow caught his hand. His mother had delivered him into the world, but it was his father who refused to give him up to the nevermore. When the eyes of a son and a father meet in fated moments such as these, they become one light. They become a reckoning neither life or death would dare keep apart. His father gripped Ashwin's wrist for what must have been no time. For only in no time does eternity exist. There you go. The exploration of father-son relationships continue all across mediums.
I love that last line. It's so zen.
Thank you. Yes. It's very, very complex subject matter of human relationships.
Thank you, Bogdan. Any other questions about his writing? And so how far are you, Bogdan, with this novel?
I'm pretty far. It actually was going to be one book, and then recently, again, just talking here at home, I decided that it was going to have to be a few books. So now the task of actually finishing it is far more feasible. And so I'm really excited to finish the first book, and hopefully, as I said, it's much more now than the screenplay that it started. Now it's turned into something much bigger. So I'm hoping that in the fall, I can wrap up the first book and then look to publish it and then move on to the second part of it.
And Bogdan, how well are you connected? I know we talked about it, and we talked to Ilana about it. This is one of our concerns, the fact that we're not native speakers. Whenever we try to write in English, we're always reminded that we do have an accent in writing. And how well connected are you with the literary world? I feel like the film world is more inclusive than the literary world. Can you comment a little bit about that?
You mean like if I try to publish this, how?
Yes. Yes.
Well,
Have you started to reach out to other writers? Is there a group that welcomes non-native writers?
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, I'm not connected at all. But I'm sure that as soon as this is ready, there will be all kinds of connections that will start firing up.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your optimism and the way you see life. It's really amazing and inspiring. Yes. Are there any other questions for Bogdan? It's
not really a question, but I just want to thank you so much for making this really a special day and a special weekend. Today would have been the birthday of my stepfather, and then tomorrow's Father's Day, and he was definitely someone who knew how to express his love. I mean, I was fortunate my father as well. But, you know, he did have the opportunity to travel to Romania. They lived in Greece for a couple of years, in Italy for 3 years, and traveled through Yugoslavia as well. I don't think they ever went to Bulgaria, but that part of the world was important to our family in many, many different respects. And so it just is very nice to take this moment to hear your voice, to see your work, your film, and to just see where this is going. What you're doing is the kind of work that my stepfather would have always wanted to support, and I look forward to continuing to support it.
Well, thank you so much. I'm a stepdad as well, actually. I don't know if people know, so this means a lot to me coming from you, because there's a whole different spectrum of love and feelings that happens between a stepdad and a stepdaughter. So thank you.
I agree.
It's really beautiful.
This is wonderful. Is there? Thank you, Michelle. Thank you for sharing that. That this adds a new dimension, puts things into perspective even more for us, and this is what we're trying to do. Connect our, you know, home worlds, you know, in a way, because we belong to so many places, all of us, right? Any other questions? We do have time for maybe 2 more questions.
You can always type them in the message too if you want to, if people want to.
Yes, so if you don't want to, be heard, or you're more comfortable with that.
Are you going to be adding this Baba to FILMABEE? I don't see it listed.
Yeah, actually, this Baba is on FILMABEE. If you go on the documentaries, you can watch it there. Actually, this is a nice segment into FILMABEE, because I love cinema, and we have some amazing films. We released yesterday a Bulgarian film called Aga, and so I hope that more and more people will just come and vote with their dollar for us to continue to come as a community in this kind of new world and new format. But yes, this Baba is available to watch on FILMABEE.
Yes, and Aga is a wonderful film about fathers, actually, and daughters, and the environment. Actually, it's a wonderful film. It is a masterpiece. So please make time to see it. Yeah.
And then also I wanted to say, actually, it's interesting in speaking of this Baba, and what sets FILMABEE apart is that actually you can choose how much you can give for a film. And also, for example, in the example of this Baba, 80% of anything that is paid to watch the film, we give back to Panka Encheva, who is a retired immigrant in America. And so she gets that money to her. So that's how this whole site is set up, to give back to the community. So I'm really excited to nourish that and continue to explore that sense of community through this site.
Wonderful.
And if there is no other question, Bogdan, can you tell us more a little bit about? I think we received a newsletter from you talking about this other project that you're working on, but it has the central figure is your mother. Is it that's more autobiographical, or I thought you were writing a piece on that too?
Yeah, so I have actually on FILMABEE also the idea is to have blogs, and we're getting some wonderful artists to join us blogging and writers. And so if you know of anyone that's like, hey, they want a voice, then please have them contact us. But I started a blog on FILMABEE called The Green Card. And actually, my first entry in that blog is called Ashamed Looking at My Mother. And if you haven't read it, I invite you to read it, because I'll just say in a few words that I didn't see my mom for 9 years when I came to the States. And so this first entry in the blog talks about, describes my feelings of not seeing my mom, who I'm incredibly connected to. And even though we've been talking about fathers, my mom will also... I feel that actually in mythology and in many aspects, you know, the mother is talked about, but not enough. So I am going to talk a lot more about mothers and my mom, and actually honor her in my writings as in the years to come and in my films. But so that's the blog, the Green Card blog, which basically describes my experience getting my green card and what I went through. So it's going to be, there's 2 entries now, and as I have time, I'll write more. But that's part of a bigger project, which is called From Here to There. And it's actually my next novel after I'm done with this one, which involves me going back to all the villages and cities where my great-grandfathers and mothers were from. And I'm going to be writing basically this novel From Here to There, telling their stories and leading up to my story. So I'm really excited for that. I actually started working on it a few years ago and interviewing my mother, my father, a friend of the family in her 80s last year in Bulgaria. So I'm really excited. There's so many stories, and I encourage more and more people to actually, nowadays especially, it's so easy to have the phone and to record your grandma or grandfather. Unfortunately, I never had the chance to do that, but for us to really preserve what they have given to humanity and to be able to pass that on one way or another. Do you have other questions, Otilia?
No, we have somebody, Nora Teodorescu, saying, thank you, Bogdan, for taking me down the memory lane of my childhood. Thank you, Art, Otilia, Ilana, for organizing. I have to go now. I look forward to a future coffee talk.
Well, we will keep them coming, so that's the idea.
Yeah, yes. Is there anybody who wants to ask a question? Maybe we have time for one more question because we started 10 minutes later. So please feel free to, write it down in a chat, or, just.
And I want to thank everyone for coming too. That's awesome.
Well, I think we can stop here. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming. We will have a morning coffee and films in July on a Georgian film, and we're hoping to have both the directors join us for the discussions. And so please keep posted. Sign up for our newsletter on FILMABEE and ARCS, and yes, and other fun events throughout the summer. And tomorrow, if you are interested in Romanian stuff, there is a live stream discussion on the Romanian blouse, and there's a few organizations participating. It's a global event with guests from Romania, from the Mary Hill Museum of Art, and New York and the Washington, D.C. area. So maybe you don't need to sign up for that. Just go on the event page and watch it. All right. So any other, Bogdan, do you want to add anything?
No, thank you, everyone. And just, subscribe, and let's keep.
Oh, we do have a few things in the chat. Just make sure that we're addressing them. Thank you. Okay, so everybody thanks us. And yeah. Okay. So we're very grateful that you're drinking coffee with us. That's really amazing. This will boost our day, right? Yes, we'll make our day. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Thanks,
Thank you, everyone. Yeah. See you next time. Thank you, Bogdan, for your work and passion and connecting the community.
You're welcome.
All for your questions and participating. Thank you, Ilana, Michelle, Kosti, and I know a few other Sage. I know most of you. All right. Thank you. Bye.
Don't forget to turn off the recording.
I won't. I'm trying to figure this out. So, yeah.